What if back in the 1920s and 30s you read an article in the local newspaper that a mafia member was shot and killed while working for his crime boss, in the line of duty, so to speak? How would you feel about that? Would you shed a tear for Guido? Would you expect that the city would immortalize him as a hero? If they did start engaging in hero talk, wouldn't you start asking questions like, am I getting the whole story here? What really happened?
Police officer was shot during a traffic stop in Queens and later died from his injuries.
The shooter is now in custody, but let's get right to Good Day's Robert Moses. He joins us live from Rosedale, Queens, with the very latest on this story. Robert, good morning.
Tashani and Dan, good morning to you. This is where Officer Jonathan Diller worked. We're told that he effected more than 70 arrests during his short career, but it was the last one he tried to make that proved deadly.
70 arrests in a short 3-year career. That's nearly 24 a year. Given that there are so many arrests where there is no law broken or crime committed, how many of those arrests violated the rights of the innocent? How many truly innocent people are sitting in a cage right now because of this guy?
This is a devastating moment. We lost one of our sons today. And it is extremely painful.
That pain poured from the faces of the colleagues and loved ones of Officer Jonathan Diller, a 31-year-old married father of a young son who worked for the department for more than 3 years. Late last night, fellow officers escorted his flag-draped casket from Jamaica Hospital. It is the most solemn rite this city performs.
We should never be here, and we're here far too many times.
Police say shortly before 6 p.m. yesterday, Diller and his partner, who were working with the NYPD's community response team, approached a car parked in a bus stop illegally on Mott Avenue in Far Rockaway. The passenger, police say, had a gun.
He was given a lawful order numerous times to step out of the car. He refused.
Illegally parked at a bus stop? So many questions here. Why would he have had to step out of a car just because he was parked in the wrong spot? Couldn't they just tell him to move along? Because we know what happens to people oftentimes when they do step out of the vehicle. There's usually brutality that ensues. Police brutality. Is there body or dash cam footage of the incident? If there is, why haven't they released it?
And when the officer took him out of the car, instead of stepping out of the car, he shot our officer.
Police say Diller was hit underneath his bulletproof vest. His partner returned fire and hit the gunman. Mortally wounded, Diller performed one last act of heroism.
The gun hit the ground, and as the perpetrator was still reaching for it, this cop was able to grab it, although he was still shot.
Police also arrested the driver of the illegally parked car. They say he had a gun arrest in April of last year.
It is the good guys against the bad guys. And these bad guys are violent. They carry guns. And the symbol of our public safety, which is that police uniform, they have a total disregard for.
The question is, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? After all, this is the NYPD we're talking about. Remember the Mullen Commission back in the 90s and the Knapp Commission back in the 1970s? They were both active investigations into widespread police corruption within the NYPD. The Knapp Commission investigation was the result of the publicity generated by the public revelations of police corruption made by patrolman Frank Serpico and Sergeant David Dirk. And back in the 70s, they concluded that the NYPD had systemic corruption problems. And it was so bad that 20 years later, the city of New York commissioned yet another investigation into even more allegations of police corruption. Mullen issued a report in July 1994, and it concluded, quote, "Today's corruption is not the corruption of Knapp Commission days. Corruption then was largely a corruption of accommodation, of criminals and police officers giving and taking bribes, buying and selling protection. Corruption was, in its essence, consensual. Today's corruption is characterized by brutality, theft, abuse of authority, and active police criminality. Do you think any of that's changed here in 2024? So Eric Adams likes to talk about the good guys and the bad guys. And granted, there are bad people on the streets of New York City who do bad things. But according to state-funded commissions, no regular street criminal can hold a candle to or rival the corruption infecting the city like the NYPD. Yet we hear people like New York City Police Union President Patrick Hendry making a good show for the camera.
These attacks on New York City police officers have to end right now.
What about attacks on the public by the New York City police officers? Don't they have to end? We're told in other articles that the supposed gunman was 34-year-old Guy Rivera, has 21 prior arrests, but they only list that he was last released from a New York prison in 2021 after serving 5 years behind bars for criminal possession of a controlled substance. That's it? He just possessed something the state didn't want him to have and they threw him into a cage? I mean, what do you expect from somebody who's been behind bars for 5 years, but he didn't seem to harm or threaten anyone? We're also told that records show the accused shooter also served another stint in prison starting in 2011 over a first-degree assault charge before he was released in 2014. It sure would be good to have some more detail on that. The guy who was with him was 41-year-old Lindy Jones, who also supposedly had a criminal background. But they only mentioned that he was arrested in the same police precinct where the shooting took place on April 17, 2023, after he allegedly was found with a loaded firearm. And he was charged with second-degree criminal possession of a weapon and, quote, other related charges. Now, I don't know what those other charges were, but if he didn't really commit a crime, how can he rightly be called a criminal? Not everyone who the state labels as a criminal is a criminal. These guys may be criminals and they may be a threat to the public, but there's no compelling evidence of that being released by the NYPD. What if Rivera was actually acting in self-defense against an officer who was trying to abuse him and violate his rights? And how can it possibly be a crime in America to possess a gun when one of the supreme laws of the land is the right to keep and bear arms? According to the gun grabbers at Everytown USA, New York City has the second most stringent anti-gun laws in the country. These gun laws virtually ensure that the only people who will have the guns are the cops and the criminals. But I repeat myself. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. If you want to support the channel further, grab a shirt, become a channel member, but more importantly, know what your rights are and ask questions. If you don't use your rights, you'll lose them, and if you don't ask questions, you'll remain in ignorance. If you desire to be ignorant and free, you desire what never was and what never shall be. I'll see you in the next video.